Emma clutched her 6-month-old daughter Lily tighter against her chest as she counted the coins in her palm for the third time. $4.73. The fluorescent lights of Walker's pharmacy buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across her tired face. A package of the cheapest diapers, the kind that leaked and gave Lily rashes, cost $7.99. Emma had been stretching the last few diapers for days, rinsing and reusing them when she could, but now there was nothing left. The coins in her palm represented the absolute last of her money until her paycheck arrived in 3 days. "It's okay, sweet girl," she whispered as Lily fussed, her chubby hand reaching up to grasp a strand of Emma's unwashed brown hair. "We'll figure something out, we always do." At 23, Emma Mitchell hadn't planned on being a single mother working 2 jobs and still barely making ends meet. But life had taken unexpected turns after David left when she was 7 months pregnant, claiming he wasn't ready for the responsibility. Her parents, disappointed in her choices and struggling themselves, offered little support beyond occasional babysitting when her shifts at the diner overlapped with her evening job cleaning offices. Emma placed the cheapest package of diapers in her basket and continued down the aisle, mentally calculating what she could put back. The baby formula was non-negotiable. She'd tried to breastfeed, but stress and exhaustion had dried up her milk supply months ago. Perhaps she could return the single apple and small container of yogurt she'd allowed herself. Food for herself was a luxury. Lily's needs came first. Behind Emma, though she didn't notice, stood a tall man in a charcoal suit. James Harrington, CEO of Harrington Enterprises, had stopped by the pharmacy on his way home from a board meeting to pick up heartburn medication. His company, which manufactured medical equipment, had just closed a deal worth millions. Yet, despite his success, something felt hollow lately. At 42, James had achieved everything he'd set out to accomplish professionally, but his personal life consisted of an empty penthouse apartment and dinner reservations for one. James observed the young woman ahead of him, noting her threadbare coat and the way she carefully examined price tags before putting most items back on the shelf. He watched as she bounced the infant gently while whispering reassurances. Something about her determination struck him, the quiet dignity with which she carried herself despite obvious hardship. At the checkout counter, Emma placed her items, the diapers, formula, and a small jar of baby food, and held her breath as the cashier scanned them. "That'll be $23.87, the teenage cashier said, popping her gum. Emma's heart sank. She had calculated wrong, or perhaps prices had increased again. "I'm sorry, I need to put something back." Her cheeks burned with embarrassment as she fumbled with the items, trying to decide what Lily could do without. "The diapers," she finally said, pushing them aside. "Just these other things, please." The cashier rolled her eyes and rescanned. $16.12. Emma stared at her handful of coins. Still not enough. Tears threatened, but she blinked them back fiercely. She couldn't break down here, not now. "I'm sorry, I can't." Her voice cracked as Lily began to whimper, sensing her mother's distress. "Is there a problem?" James's deep voice came from behind her. Emma turned, startled. The man standing there was clearly wealthy, from his tailored suit to his expensive watch and the subtle scent of high-end cologne. His dark hair was touched with distinguished silver at the temples, and his blue eyes assessed the situation quickly. "No, I'm fine," Emma said automatically, years of pride making her straighten her shoulders despite the humiliation burning through her. "Just need to put a few things back." James looked at the small pile of baby essentials and then at the infant, who was now rubbing her eyes tiredly against her mother's shoulder. "Please, allow me," he said, reaching for his wallet. "No." Emma's response was immediate and firm. "Thank you, but we don't need charity." James paused, recognizing the pride in her eyes. It reminded him of his own mother, who had raised him alone after his father died when James was just 10. He remembered the times she had refused help, even when they desperately needed it. "It's not charity," he said carefully. "Consider it a temporary loan, if you prefer." Emma hesitated, her need warring with her pride. Lily whimpered again, and that small sound made the decision for her. For her daughter, she could swallow her pride. "I can pay you back," she said quietly. "I get paid on Friday." James nodded, though he had no intention of collecting. He handed his credit card to the cashier. "Add whatever else you need for the baby," he told Emma. And something for yourself, too. Emma's eyes widened. That's too much. I can't accept. Please, James interrupted gently. I've been where you are. Someone helped my mother once, when I was young. I'm just passing it forward. Something in his tone, sincerity without pity, made Emma nod reluctantly. She quickly added a package of wipes and a small tube of rash cream for Lily. As they left the store together, Emma clutching her purchases while balancing Lily, she turned to thank the stranger properly. I'm Emma Mitchell, she said, offering her free hand. And this is Lily. Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Harrington. James Harrington. He shook her hand, noting the calluses on her palm, evidence of hard work. Where are you headed? Can I offer you a ride? Emma hesitated, her natural caution battling with exhaustion. It was a 30-minute walk to her tiny apartment, and Lily was getting heavier by the minute. I live in Oakwood Heights, she admitted, naming one of the city's most affordable and run-down neighborhoods. I'm heading that direction, James lied smoothly. His penthouse was actually across town. Please, it would be no trouble. As they walked to his car, a sleek black sedan that stood out starkly in the pharmacy parking lot, James found himself wondering about this young woman's story. Something about her resilience intrigued him. He hadn't felt this kind of connection to another person in years. What neither Emma nor James realized as they drove through the darkening city streets was that this chance encounter would change both their lives in ways they couldn't imagine. For Emma, struggling to keep her head above water and provide for her daughter, and for James, successful yet unfulfilled, their paths crossing in that small pharmacy was just the beginning of an extraordinary journey neither had seen coming. As James pulled up outside Emma's apartment building, a worn structure with peeling paint and security bars on the windows, he made a split-second decision that would set in motion events beyond anything either of them could anticipate. Thank you again, Emma said, gathering her bags with one arm while keeping Lily secure with the other. I promise I'll pay you back. I can get your contact information. Don't worry about it, James replied, watching her struggle with the bags. Let me help you to your door at least. Emma hesitated. She never invited strangers to her apartment, especially not wealthy men she had just met. But juggling Lily and the groceries up 3 flights of stairs would be challenging, and something about James Harrington's demeanor put her at ease. His eyes held no ulterior motives, just genuine concern. All right, thank you, she conceded. James carried the bags as they climbed the narrow stairwell with its flickering overhead light. The building smelled of old cooking oil and dampness. A baby cried somewhere on the second floor, and muffled argument could be heard through thin walls. Emma felt a flush of shame as she imagined how this place must appear to someone like James, but his expression revealed nothing. At her door, 3C, with peeling green paint and 3 separate locks, Emma fumbled with her keys while balancing Lily. May I? James asked, gently taking the keys. He opened the door and carried the bags inside, setting them on the small kitchen counter. Emma's apartment was tiny but meticulously clean. A futon doubling as a bed sat against one wall, neatly made with a threadbare but clean comforter. A portable crib stood in the corner with a mobile of handmade paper stars hanging above it. The kitchen consisted of a mini refrigerator, a 2-burner hot plate, and a sink with a dripping faucet. What struck James most, however, were the touches that made it a home despite the poverty. A vase of wildflowers on the windowsill, a hand-painted sign reading "Home Sweet Home," and photographs of Emma and Lily carefully arranged on the wall. It's not much, Emma said defensively, noticing his assessment. It's a home, James replied simply. That's what matters. As Emma put Lily down in the crib, the baby immediately began to fuss. She needs changing, Emma explained, grabbing one of the new diapers. She glanced at James awkwardly. Thank you again for your help. I don't want to keep you. James nodded, understanding the dismissal. Of course. He reached into his suit pocket and pulled out a business card. If you ever need anything, I won't, Emma interrupted, then softened. But thank you. After James left, Emma changed Lily and prepared a bottle. As she fed her daughter, she examined James's business card. Harrington Enterprises, she read aloud. James Harrington, Chief Executive Officer. Her eyes widened. The man who had paid for her groceries wasn't just wealthy. He was the CEO of one of the largest companies in the city. Harrington Enterprises manufactured medical equipment and employed thousands. Emma had even applied for a receptionist position there 6 months ago, but never heard back. The next morning, Emma dropped Lily at her neighbor, Mrs. Garcia's apartment. The elderly woman watched Lily for a fraction of what daycares charged, allowing Emma to work her morning shift at Sunnyside Diner. "You look tired, Mija," Mrs. Garcia observed, taking Lily from Emma's arms. "Late night," Emma explained. "Lily's teething." In truth, she had stayed up sewing after putting Lily to bed. Emma had been making small cloth dolls and selling them online, trying to supplement her income. Each doll took hours to complete, and she sold them for $15 each. Hardly worth the time investment, but every dollar helped. At the diner, Emma tied her apron and prepared for the breakfast rush. Her thoughts kept drifting to James Harrington. Something about their encounter felt significant, though she couldn't explain why. She had met kind people before, occasional customers who left generous tips, neighbors who shared extra food. But James's kindness felt different. Perhaps it was the lack of condescension, the way he had treated her with respect rather than pity. "Emma," Greta, the head waitress, called. "Table 6 needs coffee." Emma pushed thoughts of James aside and focused on her work. By noon, her feet ached and her lower back throbbed, but her apron pocket contained almost $40 in tips. A good morning. As she prepared to leave for her afternoon job cleaning offices, Greta approached with a strange expression. "Someone's here to see you," she said, nodding toward the entrance. Emma turned to find James Harrington standing just inside the door, looking distinctly out of place in his business suit amidst the casual diner. Their eyes met, and he offered a tentative smile. "What are you doing here?" Emma asked, walking over. "How did you even find me?" "I asked around in your neighborhood," James admitted. "Mrs. Garcia mentioned you worked here." Emma frowned. You went back to my apartment building. I wanted to make sure you and Lily were okay," he said, "and I have a proposition for you." "A proposition?" Emma's guard immediately went up. She'd heard that line before, from men who thought her financial desperation made her an easy target. James, reading her expression, quickly clarified, "A job offer, at Harrington Enterprises." Emma stared at him. "Why would you offer me a job? You don't know me or my qualifications." "I know you're hard-working and resourceful," James replied, "and I need an executive assistant. My current assistant is retiring next month, and I've been interviewing candidates without success." "I don't have the qualifications for that kind of position," Emma said flatly. "You have exactly the qualities I'm looking for," James countered. "Intelligence, determination, and integrity. Skills can be learned. Character can't." Emma shook her head. "This doesn't make sense. Why would you do this for a stranger?" James hesitated, then spoke more quietly. "My mother raised me alone after my father died. We struggled for years. Someone gave her an opportunity once that changed our lives. I've always wanted to do the same for someone else." Emma studied his face, searching for deception but finding only sincerity. Still, suspicion lingered. "The starting salary is $55,000, with full benefits including healthcare and childcare assistance," James continued. "I can send you the full job description. Take time to think about it." Emma's heart raced. That salary was more than triple what she currently earned across all her jobs combined. Healthcare alone would be life-changing. Lily's last ear infection had cost nearly $200 in doctor's fees and medication, forcing Emma to pawn her mother's necklace, the only valuable item she owned. "Why me?" she asked again. "Out of all the people struggling in this city, why offer this to me?" James's expression shifted slightly, a flash of something vulnerable crossing his features before disappearing. "Sometimes life puts people in our path for a reason," he said simply. "Will you at least consider it?" What Emma didn't know, what James himself was only beginning to understand, was that their meeting had stirred something in him that he'd thought long buried. The business card he'd given her wasn't just an impulsive gesture of charity. Since leaving her apartment, James hadn't been able to stop thinking about Emma and Lily, about the quiet dignity with which Emma faced her struggles, and about how empty his own life of luxury sometimes felt. But for Emma, caution born from hard experience warred with desperate hope. Was this truly the opportunity of a lifetime, or was there something James wasn't telling her? A week later, Emma sat across from James in his expansive office on the 32nd floor of the Harrington building. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city, a city that looked very different from this height than it did from her apartment window. The interview had been going on for nearly an hour, and Emma was beginning to relax, her initial suspicions giving way to cautious optimism. "Your resume shows gaps," James noted, reviewing the document she'd spent hours perfecting at the public library. "Can you explain them?" "That's when I had Lily," Emma replied honestly. "I worked part-time jobs that paid cash during those periods. House cleaning, babysitting, whatever I could find that allowed me to bring her along." James nodded, seemingly satisfied with her answer. They had already discussed her limited office experience, a year as a receptionist at a dental office before she became pregnant, and 6 months of data entry at an insurance company before layoffs. "I won't lie to you, Emma. This position requires skills you'll need to develop quickly, but I believe you can do it." Emma straightened in her chair. "I'm a fast learner, and I don't shy away from hard work. If you give me this opportunity, I promise I won't let you down." "There's one more thing," James said, his expression becoming more serious. "This position requires complete discretion. As my assistant, you'll have access to sensitive information, not just business matters, but personal ones as well." "I understand," Emma nodded. "Confidentiality is important. More than important, it's essential." James leaned forward. "The board members don't know I'm hiring someone without traditional qualifications. Some would object. If you accept this position, there will be those who question my decision, perhaps even suggest inappropriate reasons for your hiring." Emma's cheeks flushed with understanding. Office gossip, implications of impropriety. She hadn't considered these complications. "I need to be transparent," James continued. "This job won't be easy. The hours can be long, the pressure intense. And you'll face scrutiny, not because of your abilities, but because of how we met." Emma considered his words carefully. The salary he offered would transform her and Lily's lives. No more choosing between electricity and food, no more washing dishes in cold water to save on the gas bill, no more lying awake wondering how to afford next month's rent. But at what cost to her dignity? "Why are you really doing this, Mr. Harrington?" she asked directly. "The truth, please." James was silent for a moment, as if weighing how much to reveal. "When I saw you in that pharmacy, counting coins while comforting your daughter, something resonated with me. My mother and I were once in a similar position. Proud, hard-working, but struggling against circumstances beyond our control." He stood and walked to the window, his back to Emma. 20 years ago, I promised myself that if I ever succeeded, I would remember where I came from. That I would use my position to create opportunities, not just profits." He turned to face her. "But I'll admit there's something more personal too. I've built this company from nothing, achieved everything I set out to accomplish professionally, yet lately I've been questioning what it's all for." Emma waited, sensing there was more. "My life is filled with people who want something from me. Business partners, shareholders, social climbers. When was the last time I connected with someone genuine, someone whose first instinct wasn't to take advantage?" He shook his head. "I'm not explaining this well." "You're lonely," Emma said simply. James looked startled, then gave a rueful smile. "Perhaps I am." "So this job offer, is it business or personal?" Emma pressed. "It's a business decision with personal motivation," James answered carefully. "I need an excellent assistant. You need a better opportunity. That the arrangement might also lead to—" He paused. "A friendship of sorts would be a separate matter entirely." Emma considered his words. Despite her initial suspicions, nothing about James's behavior had been inappropriate. He had been respectful, professional, and transparent about his expectations for the position. "I'll take the job," she decided. "But I want to be clear. I'll earn my place here. No special treatment, no shortcuts. And while I'm grateful for your kindness, my professional performance will stand on its own merit." James smiled, extending his hand. "Welcome to Harrington Enterprises, Ms. Mitchell." 3 months later, Emma's life had transformed beyond recognition. Her new salary allowed her to move into a safe, clean apartment with 2 bedrooms. Lily attended the company's on-site daycare, receiving excellent care while Emma worked upstairs. The healthcare benefits had already proven invaluable when Lily needed surgery for ear tubes, a procedure that would have been financially devastating before. Professionally, Emma had thrown herself into learning everything about her new role. She took online courses at night, studied industry publications, and absorbed James's business practices like a sponge. Her organizational skills and attention to detail made her a natural executive assistant. and her ability to anticipate James's needs impressed even him. But the transition hadn't been without challenges. As James had predicted, whispers followed Emma through the office corridors. Victoria Harrington, James's ex-wife who still held a position on the board, made her disapproval painfully obvious. "James has always had a weakness for charity cases," Victoria had remarked loudly at a company function, her gaze fixed pointedly on Emma, "though usually they don't end up on the payroll." James had defended Emma publicly, emphasizing her qualifications and quick learning, but the whispers persisted, and Emma felt the weight of proving herself daily. Then came the Richardson contract, a potential deal worth millions that would expand Harrington Enterprises into international markets. Emma had been working late, organizing the presentation materials for the meeting scheduled the following morning, when she noticed a discrepancy in the numbers. "This doesn't add up," she murmured, comparing the financial projections with the market analysis. The projected profit seemed inflated, the market penetration estimates unrealistic. The more she examined the documents, the more concerned she became. She called James immediately, despite the late hour. "The Richardson numbers are wrong," she explained when he answered. "Someone has manipulated the projections. If you present these tomorrow, you'll be promising returns the company can't possibly deliver." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "How certain are you?" James finally asked. 100%, Emma replied firmly. "I've triple-checked everything." "Come to my house," James instructed, giving her the address. "Bring all the documentation." An hour later, Emma sat at James's dining table, spreadsheets and projections spread before them. James's expression grew increasingly grim as she walked him through her findings. "This had to be deliberate," he said finally. "These aren't mistakes. They're calculated manipulations." "Who prepared these reports?" Emma asked. "Victoria oversaw the financial projections," James replied, his voice tight. "She insisted on handling this personally, given her connections with the Richardson family." Emma fell silent, the implications hanging heavy between them. Was Victoria deliberately trying to sabotage James, or was there something else at play? "You've just prevented a disaster," James said, rubbing his temples. "If I had presented these numbers and the deal had gone through, we would have been legally bound to deliver impossible returns. The company could have faced lawsuits, even bankruptcy." Emma felt a chill. Had she inadvertently stumbled into corporate sabotage, and how would Victoria react when she discovered Emma had exposed the discrepancies? "What happens now?" she asked quietly. James's phone buzzed with a text message. He checked it, his expression darkening further. "It's Victoria," he said, showing Emma the screen. "She wants to meet before the presentation tomorrow. Says she has concerns about your involvement in the project." Emma felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. She had uncovered something dangerous, something that could cost her the new life she was building for herself and Lily. But she had also possibly saved Harrington Enterprises from disaster. James looked at her, his eyes reflecting both gratitude and concern. "Emma, I think we've just discovered why Victoria was so opposed to your hiring, and I fear this is only the beginning." The next morning, Emma arrived at the office earlier than usual, her stomach knotted with anxiety. The Richardson presentation was scheduled for 10 a.m., and James had called an emergency meeting with the executive team at 8 a.m. to address the discrepancies she had uncovered. He had instructed her to attend, despite Victoria's certain objections. Emma checked on Lily at the company daycare first, drawing strength from her daughter's delighted smile and chubby-armed hug. Whatever happened today, she reminded herself, this was why she fought so hard, for Lily's future. At precisely 8 a.m., Emma entered the conference room, documents organized in a neat folder. 5 executive team members were already seated, including Victoria Harrington, whose cold gaze followed Emma as she took her seat beside James. At 45, Victoria remained striking, elegantly dressed, immaculately groomed, and radiating the confidence of someone born into privilege. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," James began, his tone grave. "I've discovered serious inconsistencies in the Richardson proposal that require immediate attention." Victoria's perfectly sculpted eyebrow arched. "Inconsistencies? I reviewed those numbers personally." "Yes, you did," James agreed, nodding at Emma to distribute the folders she had prepared. Emma discovered the discrepancies last night while preparing for today's presentation. The projections have been deliberately inflated, creating unrealistic expectations we could never fulfill. As the executives reviewed the documents, expressions of alarm spread around the table. Victoria's face remained impassive, but Emma noticed her manicured fingers tightening around her pen. "These are serious allegations," Victoria said smoothly, "based on the analysis of an assistant with no financial background." The pause before assistant was subtle, but cutting. "The numbers speak for themselves," Emma replied calmly, refusing to be intimidated. "The market penetration estimates are nearly double the industry standard for new product launches. The projected revenue growth contradicts your own market research department's findings from last quarter." She pointed to specific sections in their folders, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. Thomas Reed, the chief financial officer, looked up from his documents with a frown. "She's right. These projections aren't just optimistic, they're impossible." "Who prepared these?" All eyes turned to Victoria, whose composed expression finally cracked slightly. "I had Marcus Henderson from Analysis prepare them based on my guidance," she admitted. "I may have encouraged him to present our best-case scenario." "This goes well beyond best case," James said. "This borders on fraudulent misrepresentation. The question is why?" Victoria's gaze hardened. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately, James." "No," he replied firmly. "So whatever affects this company affects everyone in this room. If you have an explanation, we all deserve to hear it." Victoria's mask of composure slipped entirely, revealing the anger beneath. "Fine. You want the truth? I've worked to build this company for 20 years, even after our marriage ended. Then you bring in this—" She gestured dismissively at Emma. "This charity case with her sob story, and suddenly she has more influence over company decisions than board members. It's embarrassing and unprofessional." "Victoria," James warned, but she continued, "the Richardson deal is my connection, my work. I wasn't going to let her ruin it with her inexperience. Yes, I pushed the numbers to ensure the deal would go through. We could have adjusted the projections gradually afterward, once the contract was secured." "That's not how we do business," James said, his voice dangerously quiet. "That's not how I do business." "Oh, please," Victoria scoffed. "You've changed since she arrived. The James I knew understood that business sometimes requires bold moves, calculated risks." "Fraud isn't a calculated risk," Thomas interjected. "It's a crime." Victoria stood abruptly. "I see I'm outnumbered here. But consider this, James. How will the board react when they learn you've allowed a former waitress with no qualifications to influence major company decisions? How will Richardson respond when they discover their primary contact has been undermined by your personal assistant?" The threat hung in the air, heavy with implication. "That's enough," James said, standing as well. "Victoria, you're suspended pending a full investigation. Please leave your company devices with security and exit the building." Victoria's face flushed with anger. "You can't suspend me. I'm on the board." "As CEO I can, and I am," James replied. "The board will be fully informed of your actions, including this attempt at intimidation." For a moment, Emma thought Victoria might lash out physically. Instead, she gathered her belongings with rigid control. "You'll regret this," she said coldly, her gaze shifting between James and Emma. "Both of you." After Victoria stormed out, the room fell silent. Emma felt the weight of the other executives' stares, some curious, some reassessing, some grudgingly respectful. "The Richardson presentation is in less than 2 hours," James said finally. "Thomas, work with Emma to prepare revised projections, honest ones. The rest of you prepare for damage control. This meeting is adjourned." As the others filed out, James touched Emma's arm lightly. "Are you all right?" Emma nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. "She's not going to stop, is she?" "No," James admitted, "but neither are we." The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings, board explanations, and damage control. Victoria launched a campaign to discredit both James and Emma, leaking selective information to business publications and rallying allies on the board. The Richardson deal hung in the balance as the company's internal conflict became increasingly public. Through it all, Emma maintained her professionalism, impressing even James's staunchest critics with her composure and competence. She worked tirelessly, proving through actions rather than words that she deserved her position. Then came the day of the rescheduled Richardson presentation. Emma had just finished reviewing the final documents when her phone rang. The daycare. "Miss Mitchell, Lily has a high fever," the caregiver explained. "She needs to be picked up immediately." Emma's heart sank. The presentation was in 30 minutes, and James was counting on her support. But Lily needed her more. She found James in his office, rehearsing his talking points. "James, I'm sorry, but Lily's sick. I need to take her to the doctor." Without hesitation, James nodded. "Go. Family comes first. Always." "But the presentation—" "I'll manage," he assured her. "Take care of your daughter." At the hospital, as doctors diagnosed Lily with a severe ear infection requiring overnight observation, Emma received a text from James. Richardson signed. "Full terms, honest numbers. How's Lily?" Emma smiled through her exhaustion, typing back a quick update. As she sat beside Lily's hospital bed, watching her daughter sleep, Emma reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From counting coins for diapers to saving a multi-million-dollar company from disaster, life had changed in ways she could never have imagined. A soft knock at the hospital room door interrupted her thoughts. James stood there, his tie loosened, holding a teddy bear and a coffee. "Thought you might need this," he said, offering the coffee. "The bear's for Lily when she wakes up." "You didn't have to come," Emma said, touched by the gesture. "I wanted to," James replied simply, taking the seat beside her. "You and Lily, you've become important to me." In that quiet moment, with Lily sleeping peacefully and the crisis at work resolved, Emma realized something had shifted between them. What had begun as charity had evolved into respect, then friendship, and now, perhaps, something more. "Victoria resigned from the board," James said softly. "The other members unanimously supported you after seeing how you handled everything." "So it's really over?" Emma asked. James nodded. "One chapter ends, another begins." Emma reached over and took his hand, a gesture of gratitude and connection. "Thank you for changing our lives." "You have it backward," James replied, his fingers gently squeezing hers. "You changed mine. You reminded me what really matters: integrity, compassion, family, things I'd forgotten in the pursuit of success." Outside, the city lights began to twinkle as evening fell. In that hospital room, with Lily's steady breathing and their hands intertwined, Emma and James found something neither had been looking for when they met in that pharmacy months ago. Not just professional respect or financial security, but the promise of something deeper. A family forged not through obligation or circumstance, but through choice, trust, and an unexpected second chance at happiness. "What happens now?" Emma asked softly. James smiled, his eyes warm with possibility. "Whatever we want, together.